Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Think and Grow Rich, the International Mastermind Think and Grow Rich show. I am Galen Bingham, and I am just really excited to come to you as we continue to walk through this book, this classic book that's been around since 1937, and all motivational self-help success philosophies today find their origin in this book. So I'm excited to bring this to you today. We're going to be talking about organized planning. And this is a really, really important topic. And I'm going to read to you something from the text because this is actually on page 107. It says that no, excuse me, 106. It says no individual has sufficient experience, education, native ability, and knowledge to ensure the accumulation of great fortune without the cooperation of others. If the first plan which you adopt does not work successfully, replace it with a new plan. If the new plan fails to work, replace it in turn with still another, and so on. So there's this real important need to have a plan if you're going to have any kind of success, any kind of riches, however you define riches, whether it's money, whether it's a relationship, whether it is, however you fill in that blank. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. How do you leverage organized planning in order to achieve these goals that you might have for yourself? Really, really important topic. I'd love to have this conversation with you just by myself, but I've got the luxury of having Miss Ann McNeil, the master wealth builder, with me today. And come on in. How are you doing today?
Awesome, 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 Caleb. I'm so excited. We talked earlier about the fact that you will be here by yourself, futuristically speaking. So I want to just say that up front. But I also want to just let everybody know that yes, we are the International Mastermind Association. And if you've joined us for any length of time, you know that we're talking about, like Galen said, the book Thinking Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And we have actually documented a process through mastering these principles in our lives. And so we want to really encourage you to get your book, participate with us in this process today as we talk about organized planning. And so, Galen, I'm excited to get into the conversation because, as you know, we can have dreams and goals, but in order to crystallize them into reality, we must have a desire to act on the goals by having some definite practical steps and plans. So let's get started.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, look, I would love to we could just have a conversation between the two of us about this topic because both of us are incredibly busy. Both of us are doing massive things. You probably more so, even with these international trips that you're getting ready to go on. But today we've got the luxury of having with us Mr. Donald Dowridge Jr., who is a keynote speaker. He's a mentor. He's a motivational guru. And we're going to bring him on just for a second, but he also is a Frederick Douglass impersonator. So he's got a lot of things that he's got going on, constantly going on. And so the perfect person to have in this conversation around organized planning. So, Mr. Dowridge, come on on. We would love to have you just talk to the audience just a little bit about who you are and all these things that you're doing. And boy, I tell you, the Frederick Douglass is dead on. That's dead on.
I first of all, I made sure since Miss McNeil mentioned, and she has her Frederick, so I said, well, let me go ahead on and bring my Frederick to the stage as well. In my Frederick voice, good morning, and we are gathered here this morning to talk about the abolitionists and how we can free the slaves. That's my Frederick Douglass this morning. How's everybody doing?
Oh,
Awesome,
fantastic.
awesome.
Fantastic. Can't wait to get into this conversation because like I said, any of us can have dreams and goals and things that we say we want to do someday, but without an organized plan, as Ann was saying earlier, they just remain on someday island. So we definitely want to get into this conversation with you to understand how you leverage organized planning to do all the things that you're doing at such a high level. Before we get into that, though, Miss Ann, I'd love for you to just kind of share with the audience this overview of all the principles, so we can understand how organized planning fits into an entire process. So if you could take us through that, that would be great.
Absolutely, Galen. I think that for those of us who study the book and live in these principles, we will begin to understand really that when you talk about making money, every single principle that is espoused in this book connects to, I call it a secret, even though there's really no secret. And they it's like links in a chain, if you will. And when Andrew Carnegie asked Napoleon Hill if he would take 20 years of his life to research the philosophy of success, this is the product of that 20-year research, these principles. So we're going to ask everybody to just watch this video and listen to these 13 principles. Thank you.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical. But what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right. So those are all the 13 principles that go into this philosophy. And before we go into the conversation with our guest, Mr. Dowridge, I want to go back to page 107 because right there towards the top, it says the most intelligent men living today cannot succeed in accumulating money nor any other undertaking without plans which are practical and workable. Just keep in mind and remember that when your plans fail, they are temporary defeat. It's not a permanent failure. It may only mean that your plans are not sound, but just build another plan, start all over again, and stay focused. And with that, I want to go back to our guest. I want to bring in our guest and just hear from you, Donald. We talked about all the things that you're doing. Keynote speaker, mentor, motivational guru, master ceremony. You're a historian. You're a scholar. Is there DLD wear that you've got going on? You've got books, DVDs. There are so many things. How do you leverage organized planning as Napoleon Hill described it? How do you leverage that to do the things that you do?
Well, if I can, before answering, mention while I was listening to you in reference to failing. While I was listening to you hit that point there, I was thinking back on my experiences and the many times that I failed. I was instructed personally by Mr. Les Brown, who I received some of my training from back in the days, and it was that he instructed that never give up. However, continue to throw it against the wall. Everything won't stick, but because it don't stick, don't mean that you give up. But we all fail at something, but it doesn't mean that you are or will wind up being a failure. But you have to be persistent and consistent on reaching your goals, because goals, if you will not come at the point of your finger. It is something that I would have to work at constantly. So when you talk about organized planning, it has been, if I can be real with you, it's been a challenge. And planning, and not just planning, but moving forth to assure that these plans that I have come to fruition. And it goes in with, assuring, which I don't have my watch on, that I'm using my time wisely. It goes into also to companion up with others in reference to seeking the knowledge that I need to take on a task, if you will, to learn what it would take to reach that pinnacle of what I'm desiring, if you will. But also, when you're talking about organized planning, is to stick to that plan at all costs. And I mentioned earlier persistence. To be persistent, to be focused on that plan so that that plan can come to fruition. Yes, as you said, sir, I do have a lot on my plate. And the way that I'm positioned sitting here, I am looking at least 20 books. 20 books. When you talk about organized planning, I have at least 5 of those books are from contains letters in my early days where I would send letters out to the likes of Arsenio Hall, Oprah Winfrey, Mayor David Dinkins. I mean, I was so persistent in doing this. I sent out at least close to 100 letters. Did I get replies of all 100? No, I didn't. I might have got one reply. And to be honest with you, that one reply was no other than Arsenio Hall. Mr. Hall and I, we forged a friendship through mailing. Quite naturally, back then we didn't have the internet per se, so through mailing, and the persistence of constantly writing him and watching his show. And it's funny, I will share with you, and I hope you don't mind, but this is a real moment. I am a super fan of the Temptations. As a matter of fact, I auditioned for them in 1996. And I was watching a segment of the Arsenio Hall show. And it wasn't when the Temptations and New Edition was on the show. It was when he went to the dog pound and he asked, anybody here know how to dance? And I'll never forget this. I was sitting on my couch, which I am, even at 65, I will proclaim that I am an awesome dancer. So anyway, I'm sitting there and this young lady comes up. He pulls out the audience and she just starts breaking and doing her thing. And I'm sitting here. And not only could I see me dancing on Arsenio, but my eyes started welling up. I'm just being real. And I was saying, wow, I can do that. That should be me. That should be me. So it's the persistence. And I also recall back in 2000, forgive me, Mr. Les Brown and Jim Rohn and a few other speakers came to speak. One of my partners, my business partners, we went and we sat and we were doing intermission. I asked my partner, I said, can you see yourself out there on that stage? And partner says, quite naturally, I can. I feel it. And believe me, those 2 instances are just 2 of the persistence and 2 of the strategies, 2 of the visions and focus. When you talk about Mr. Hill, Napoleon, that I stuck to, even though the Arsenio Hall didn't come to fruition, however, I stuck to it and it was part of a plan, so much so that even today, as you said, my plate is full, that yes, dancing and performing, which I do in a group, is still part of my repertoire.
Wow, that I think that's a great example of how we can accomplish great things, but only if we have plans in place that will allow us to do that. I want to bring in Ms. Ann McNeil, and one of the key lines that I have underlined, starred, and boxed out in my book, also on page 107, says that your achievement can be no greater than your plans are sound. And that's a little bit of what we've been talking about now. I know that you've done amazing things, Ms. Ann, as well. But you couldn't have accomplished any of them if you didn't have sound plans. What questions do you have for Donald, and how important is organized planning to accomplishing any level of success from your perspective?
Well, Donald hit on something that is right actually on the first page of the chapter. And I think that it bears repeating when you think about, the author takes us back to chapter 1 and in chapter 2. And basically he says that, go back to the 6 definite practical plans and the practical steps. If you desire to translate your desire for money or its equivalent into reality. And so one of the first things he says you must do, and Donald talked about this, is you must connect yourself with a group of people who are willing and able, keyword, willing and able, to check your plans out. That's called a mastermind group or business partner, whoever you want to call it. But oftentimes we have plans and we don't have accountability for those plans, and we want to run off and go and just start doing things without really having a check and balance or an accountability buddy or partner to know whether these plans are sound when it comes to making money. And when you take your plans and mix it with all of the other principles, he talked about persistence, desire, imagination, faith. All of these are required, because what happens when defeat comes? One of the things that I was doing in preparation for today's podcast, I actually wrote here on my pad, I said, what happens when defeat and fear comes? And this is why it is imperative that we have others surrounding us, and maintaining perfect harmony with them and them with us, to really be open to the criticism or the challenges of, vetting those plans. So I just would like to encourage everybody that's listening, you really must have written, documented plans, and, short-term, long-term, plan A, plan B, plan C. But what do they really look like? I encourage everybody to go back to how much, doing what, by when. Those are the 6 keys that he gives us in the first couple of chapters. So those are just some thoughts, Galen. But my question for our guest, I call you Mr. Donald. You know that, right? So Mr. Donald, what actual steps do you use in your plans? I mean, what's the first thing you do, if you would share? Then what's the second thing you do, if you would share? Because I think it's important for our guests to also understand we don't all plan alike. And then secondly, if you would share who's actually in your group, your mastermind. I think you mentioned about a partner earlier. You mentioned your wife, for example. But if you could answer those two, what's step 1, 2, 3, and then who is a part of your mastermind alliance that's helping you vet those plans?
Thank you. First and foremost, I just got to be honest with you. God, who is God. The second would be, my imagination. And I do have a vivid imagination, I must state. And once that imagination come in, the next thing I have in my hand is a pencil. And you can't see it behind me, but if I move the poster out the way or the print out the way, there's a bucket full of pencils. I have or pencils and pens, and I have pencils, or should I say a pen on my desk. And I'm always writing, because out of the 95,000 thoughts that flow through my head, quite naturally, I'm not going to be able to catch all of them. But if thoughts that flow through, and they are, how can I say, valid, if you will, thoughts, and I think that, that's a possibility that it could come to fruition, I will jot it down. And if I can go back to 2009, the prima donna thought that came in my head in February of 2009 was Frederick Douglass. I didn't question it. I just ran with it. So a majority of times, if a good thought come through, and if I imagine, I'm going to act on it. I'm going to write it down. In reference to a partner or partners who advises, I do have a few of them to be exact, and they're not per se here in Tampa with me. And thank God for the internet, which and of course phone. Um, we play off each other. I present ideas, and vice versa. And I will mention one, not by name, but this gentleman, he is very persistent, and he tells me like a TI is, and I appreciate the young brothers very much. And he brings forth valid ideas, and vice versa. So, it's good that you have, like you say, Miss McNeil, it's good to have that mastermind team because, as you know, no man, no woman is an island. They will not make it on their own. And quite naturally, if I may move forward on that, is that being an island, and when you come up to those, like you said, you miss your goals or, something did not work out, you have all the earmarks to want to say, I quit. I'm done. It's not going to work. And you can only imagine how many people in this life who have had $1,000,000, $1,000,000,000 ideas, but because they felt that it wouldn't work, they gave up. So, it's always the question is, well, who said it's supposed to work? You have to take chances. You have to take risks because nothing is guaranteed. But if you're persistent and you work, and if it doesn't work, not to contradict myself, if it doesn't work, you try again because eventually it will come back to fruition. I hope I answered your questions.
Yes, just wanted to just give some time for a moment, Galen, and thank all of our members here that join us every week. Diane Wyman, Renette Gordon, Doretha, and so many others. There was a comment here, just wanted to just share from Wyman, and he says, if something is worth writing down, is worth taking action on. And so that's exactly what you're sharing, because again, one of the activities we talk about on this podcast often is journaling. I wrote a book entitled A Daily Date with Myself, and it's basically a daily journal. And going to your point, it is a consistent place that allows me to daily write my thoughts, because I am one, a pad here, a sticky note there, an envelope here, and all of those things. And then when I look for the collection of those things, then naturally I don't remember where they are. So I wrote a journal entitled A Daily Date with Myself, and allows me to collect those thoughts. So thank you for that. Imelda saying, yes, go ahead. I needed that.
I just wonder if I can bring another point in reference to the pencil. A few years ago, I listened to a lot of music when I'm at the gym, when I'm running, et cetera. And back in the days, I was in Jacksonville speaking, and I ran across this young brother, not knowing who he was, but this brother was a Christian rap artist. So he gave me a CD, right? So on my drive back to Tampa, I'm listening to this CD. So at the beginning, you have this narrator or the MC who does all the hyping and whatnot. And something he said really struck me. He said, a short pencil can save your life, meaning that write down your goals. So I want to bring up, this is a full pencil, okay? Not really full, but it's a full pencil. And one of the things that I do in some of my sessions, I will actually break the pencil. And I will ask the audience, is this pencil still good? Can we still use this pencil? And some will say no. And then the ones that say no, I say, why we can't use it? They say, because it's broken. I say, well, being that it is broken, it makes it even more powerful. Why does it make it powerful? Because guess what? And I'll go through it. Back in grade school, if I didn't have a pencil sharpener, I would go like here, or I would peel it to get to that pencil, that lead. And you know what? Doing it the hard way, and I know somebody's going to clap back, but doing it the hard way, all right, makes it more appreciable because of the fact that you have went through the extra mile to make sure you write down your goals. So when I heard that on that CD, I said, man, I got to share that with the world. And still to this day, and we're talking maybe 2012, 2013 back then, and I still use that to this day. No matter how short your pencil or how short your pencil is, it is still usable. And I also use, if you will, the analogy of Dr. Martin Luther King. I let them know that unfortunately Dr. King was assassinated at a tender young age of 39 years old. He did not live to see a whole life. However, in his short life, he used the pencil, if you will, theory. He used it to the fullest, and he got every inch out of it, even though he lived a short life.
Fantastic.
Now we have more tools to write. And Imelda says, "My Lord, that would preach." That is good. We want to thank all of the individuals that come on every week and supporting us in this podcast. But I want to go back to the organized planning section that talks about really bringing together your mastermind alliance. So you talked about individuals that the technology has allowed you to connect with. Is it possible, if you don't mind sharing, do you have an organized way you do that, or is just conversation, or it's just questions that you have? Can you walk us through that process of how you actually take the imagination, the imaginative ideas, and take them through the planning process?
Sure. Well, basically, and as you know, we all had our lives disrupted because of COVID. But even though we had our lives disrupted because of COVID, if you are energized and you are still focused, all right, that does not excuse the fact that, okay, well, I could take these 2 years, or I could take this lockdown and just lay back and chill. Chilling, you know, when I think of chilling, that's when I go outside and it's snow outside. That's the only chill I'm getting. But other than that, just having the wherewithal and the tools to be able to compensate or to conversate. And I say that in such a manner as that where we live at in this society today, this technology we have before us today, there is definitely no excuse for failure. And I say that because just imagine if we had COVID before we had the telephone, or not the telephone, but cell phones and the computers. How would we be able to do the things that we do today, such as with this show? You know, I mean, we're all online. We're not live and, person to person. We are actually on a device. But back then we didn't have that privilege. Okay. Now, this may sound weird, but back then I probably could see, having the excuse, if you will, to say, you know what, I'll use the phone, I'll write a letter, but you got to wait for that return, for that response. Whereas now it's automatic. So we have no excuse not to, cell phone it, laptop it, to communicate with, our masterminds. And one thing that I do on a constant with some of my partners, if you will, is that, it's no problem with me to text. I got an idea. It's no problem with them to text. I mean, I have one partner that, to be honest with you, he lives on Instagram. But when I say he lives on Instagram, trust me, it's not living on Instagram nonsense. He lives on Instagram educating, empowering, and coming up with great ideas that he shares with whomever, decides to tune in. Also with myself, I have when I have quote unquote downtime, that means if I'm not traveling, not speaking, I come up with, like motivational flyers that I design, because I do graphic designs. I come up with them and I will send them to him and say, what you think about this? He'll hit me back and he say, okay, and I'll let it rip. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. And the premise behind that is, in my personal space, who can I help next? Knowing that I can't be 1,000 places at one time, but guess what? This modem that we're using can be 1 trillion places at one time. So it's the putting out the information so that people can gather it and people can run with it and people can do what they wish with it. If I can go back, another true moment. My grandmother gave me, some money to put in church, maybe $5. And I said, okay. So I took that $5 and I found myself at the local grocery store buying some cookies. My grandmother, in doing that, her heart was at peace with God because she did something that was put in her heart. Now, once she gave that $5 to me, it was up to me what I did with that $5. So I say that to say that once this information is going out to the airwaves, it's up to them what they do with it. All right. But my heart is at peace. Another instance is when back in the days, man, y'all, I love y'all too. I love y'all because y'all got my mind. It's running. Back in the days, I told you I was in music. I started a group. It was called KDIWD, Kids Doing It Without Drugs. And what I did with this group, these kids were maybe from 8 to maybe 13 years old. I set them up on a likeness of the Temptations, New Edition, and Another Bad Creation. Okay, so
Now, I want to let everybody know that's listening that this is an example of an organized plan. So we're making the point and we're sharing the story. So now you can go ahead and proceed, please. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So what I did with these kids, quite naturally, after school, I would go pick them up. I would work with them on their homework. I would give them some Bible time. And then we would go into performing, doing our steps and what have you. So that was another, if you will, thought that came to my mind because I said, well, I've had the opportunity to work in the music world. I've had the opportunity to meet stars and whatnot. And how can I take what I have and take it and pass it on to another generation? So using that modem, if you will, I stepped out and KDI, Kids Doing It Without Drugs, was created. Now, fast forward to where we are, 2 of those young men, the tentacles, 2 of these young men from the group have gone on, to work in the music industry. One of those young men have had the privilege to work with Michael Jackson, Gladys Knight, some country stars and what have you, doing engineering, the engineering, making sure the sound is right and what have you. So it all started with a dream. It all started with a seed that was implanted in me, going back to when I first saw James Brown on the Ed Sullivan Show. And as a little kid, 7 years old, I said, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be. So moving forward, I had the opportunity. Now, this is a plan, a strategized plan that was implanted in me at 7 years old. Moving forth, all these years later, it still, was taking place. And I had the opportunity to move it from me, point A, to the children, point B. Now, going back to entertaining, okay, I'm still entertaining because I portray Frederick Douglass. I'm still entertaining because I'm in The Wire. I'm still entertaining because I'm with the singing group. So each of us have a, if you will, a seed. And when you speak of Napoleon Hill, he speaks of the two envelopes when we were born. We have a optimistic envelope and we have a pessimistic envelope. Sometimes we don't recognize that envelope, which envelope we belong to, in reference to our goals, in reference to our strategized planning, in reference to all the other great things, desires and what have you, until we are of age. As you know, you can ask a 15-year-old, 10-year-old, what do you desire to be when you grow up? 9 times out of 10, that child would say, I don't know. But as that child begins to grow, that I don't know turns into, I want to be a fireman. I want to be a technician. I want to be, you see what I'm saying? So it all starts somewhere, but when it starts, it has to move forward to the planning stage, and from the planning stage to the fruition stage, not with self, but with masterminding.
Yeah, yeah. I want to bring that back into this conversation because one of the things that, and we got a lot of great comments here in the chat already from Diane King Flowers to Wyman Winbush. One of the comments that Wyman made is neither success or failure is permanent. Regardless of what state we find ourselves in, we must find the resolve to keep moving towards our goal. One of the things I say quite often is the only thing that I know for sure is that no plan will ever be executed exactly the way that it was written. So you got to find a way to keep going in spite of. And I love how we're bringing in the conversation about the importance of the mastermind, the importance of having people around us who, as one of my accountability partners will say, who will remind you of who you are, because we all forget from time to time. And so, Anna, I want to come back to you because one of the things that that you've created is this annual meeting where we get around like-minded people, as well as this clarity mastermind process where we can understand it's not just about getting around like-minded people, but it's around getting around like-minded people with a process organized so that we can actually make progress towards our goals as Wyman pointed out. Share a little bit about the Clarity Mastermind process as well as this annual meeting that we have to stay focused on what we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. I take everything that we've been discussing, and one of the things I wanted to bring back that the Donald shared is, what do you do when defeat comes upon you with all of these plans? Because we got to know that everything he just shared did not just happen without trials, troubles, tribulations. And so many years ago, we realized that in order to help groups, mastermind groups, families, and individuals to be held accountable at another level, at a higher level, that it was very important on an annual, we used to do it biannually, but right now we're only doing it annually. But that on an annual basis, these plans covering your spiritual, your family, your financial, your health, your education, your personal development, your business or your careers, your recreation, your creativity, and your civic areas, these plans must be documented. And we encourage you to set these plans for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years in the future, and some of us 20, 30, 40 years. But where do you go on an annual basis to turn those plans into an organized group that's willing to hold you and your mastermind groups accountable? So on an annual basis, we meet in Boca Raton, Florida, at the Embassy Suites on Yamada Road. 2023, we will be meeting on January the 6th and the 7th. And Victoria, if you can bring up the JPEG, we meet next year, 2023, we will be meeting on January the 6th and the 7th at the Embassy Suites in Boca Raton. and we will be hosting an annual meeting for your life. Now, let me say this to everybody so we're very clear. This is not a conference. No, it's not a conference, with the conference bags and the breakout sessions and, the keynote speaker. No, you are the corporation. You are the keynote speaker, and you will be speaking at a roundtable with a few people, bringing your life in writing. And for any reason that you want to bring a guest or you show up empty handed, just know you cannot come in without completing what we call a survey for your life. Why? Because on an annual basis, this is what organized planning looks like. We can talk about it, but how do you be about it? And so from this organized group, we've also created what's called a beta test group. So Victoria, if you can pull that group up, that JPEG. Now, all of this information is on our website at internationalmasterminders.com. internationalmasterminders.com. If you are interested in participating in our beta test, that's where we're discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly of masterminding and how do you form and create your mastermind group and listen to some other groups and some other individuals who are creating best practices for masterminding. It's not perfect, but what Napoleon Hill tells us in the first page of the organized planning chapter and principle, he says, in order to vet, in order to check your plans, you must have a mastermind group. You must have someone holding you accountable. So join us once a month. You can register at internationalmasterminders.com/group network. Again, that's internationalmasterminders with an S.com/group network. And you can register and we'll send you all the details to participate with us in that particular group. Now, as we prepare to wrap up, if you're interested in having greater clarity as you mastermind all of these areas, you can go to annmcneil.com/coaching. You can go again to annmcneil.com/coaching and connect with us in regards to masterminding with clarity. And what we just did, we took a high level, we brought it down to another level, and we brought it down to you and what you can do on a daily basis, a monthly basis to vet your plans with an organized group. All right, Galen?
Yeah, I mean, so again, I can't endorse that mastermind process enough. I can't endorse the annual meeting enough. I'll tell you, the first time I went in with a bit of arrogance, thinking that I had everything figured out, and I had a 9 and a 10-year-old at my table that really challenged my plans and made it better. So there's always a better way to think strategically about your life and how do you accomplish these things that you say you want to accomplish. And so that's what this process is about. That's what this entire conversation is about. How do you use organized planning in order to put some real structure around these things that you say that you want to do? I just want to go back to our guest. Donald, one of your mottos of your company is dreams to reality, and that seems to fit in specifically to the organized planning. What are some key things that you have maybe learned from this conversation, would like to reinforce from this conversation, and how can people get a hold of you if they want to be involved in any of the incredible work that you're doing?
Thank you. Thank you. And, as Miss McNeil was mentioning about the yearly mastermind group, again, I'm in my mind thinking, I'm taking in every word. And one thing that came to my mind is that, myself, though I am, well educated, blah, 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 though I am, granddad mode, but one thing I am not. I am not D. Allen. And I say that because one of the things that I'm always telling my young groups that I'm speaking to is that, I have no qualms about sitting down as if I was the fourth grader, meaning that I am always open to take in information that will, assist, that will grow me, that will educate me. So I do appreciate that, Miss McNeil, that information you shared, and it was on target because of the fact that we all, until we're in that box, and we all got a date with destiny, but we should always be open to gain that knowledge, to be accessible, to be willing, to be open, because of the fact that just because we are elder and we have younger, just because we have been here longer, it does not dictate that we are it per se. We have, I'm amazed at the young, powerful kings and queens that I am associated with, who are constantly pouring into me. I am a sponge. We should all live our lives as if we are sponges, meaning that when you wet a sponge, it enlarges, and when we squeeze it out. So taking in all this knowledge that I've just taken in this morning, just from you all, now I can take this sponge and I can go out, and guess what? I can sprinkle the knowledge about. So, I started using the sponge analogy a few years ago because that's what we are.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of how do we gain to share, because it's not ours.
How can people get a hold of you if they would love to have you sprinkle some of your knowledge on them? You got some events coming up?
Well, I do have one, and I'm, you asked me the question, and then you went to, do I have events come up? So I'll go to events. I'll do the latter. I do have a couple of events coming up for the Father's Day weekend, and I will be portraying the man behind me. I will be portraying the man behind Miss McNeil, Mr. Frederick Douglass, on stage at the Palladium in St. Petersburg on June 18th, as you see the flyer there. And the headliners is the Soul Caravan, which they will be doing a Earth, Wind, and Fire tribute. Now, I didn't mention prior to that, or better yet, earlier in that day, I will be performing again as Frederick Douglass at the Clearwater Library. And I should have mentioned as well, also on the 28th, I apologize because I'm still waiting on the official flyer. I will be performing at the Tampa Bay History Center as Frederick Douglass as well. So I do have these 3 engagements coming up. And if anyone would like to gather more information on that, or have me to come out and speak, quite naturally, they could dial me directly, 813-394-5875. They can email me at DLD Delta Lima Delta 28 2002 at yahoo.com. And trust me, whatever social platform is out there, DLD is running high on them. So I'm there, and I'll be honest with you. I only have one purpose, and that one purpose, believe it or not, is who can I help next?
Love it, love it, love it. Miss Ann, you had to have enjoyed this conversation because this was right at the core of what you've committed much of your life to. What are some key takeaways that you've gathered, and then how can people get a hold of you if they want to get involved in any of the things that you're working on? Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Ugh, I had to unmute myself. I just want to share this comment that Ross Tarr made. he asked Donald, he said, just think what Frederick Douglass could have done with the cell phone. And, I think we should have a show, Donald, we should have you come back and have a Frederick Douglass conversation on organized planning. So, um, and actually, I will make this statement though about one of the things that Frederick Douglass did. One of the books behind me, if you would just give me, I can't normally do this because, oh, this is it. In this book, Picturing Frederick Douglass, we're talking about organized planning. All right. And I think that is fitting that you're here, Donald, because one of the things that Frederick Douglass did, we're talking about organized planning. He created a plan through his imagination by first saying, my face, my Frederick Douglass face, would become the face of the slave. Now, desire, that was his desire. And by faith, he created a plan, an organized plan. His plan was that he would take a picture of himself, all dressed up in his garb, everywhere he went in the world. He organized, and just imagine during his day, communicating with the photographer in advance, oftentimes before he got to a location, to photograph him. And then his plan was to have copies made of his own face, which we now know like postcards, and send that copy all over the world during his day to every important person in the world, kings and queens, president. Now, this book that I just showed you, entitled Picturing Frederick Douglass, states that Kodak did the research. And we're talking about organized planning. And what does it look like in your life? Coming out of slavery, for him to do that then, Kodak did the research and said that his face was the most photographed face during his day in history. He was photographed more than kings and queens and presidents and dignitaries. Now, that is an example of an organized plan that was executed with the mastermind group of accountability. Why? Because he could not do that alone. He had other people that didn't oftentimes look like us, and some did look like us, who were photographers and leaders who helped him to execute that plan. So I know we're right at 9:00, but my name is Ann McNeil. And I am, yes, I am the master wealth builder. But like Frederick Douglass, Donald, you can appreciate this. I have decided that this face is the face of a Black woman in construction. And I've taken a page out of his book, and I've decided to tell the world that this face right here is the face, not just of a Black woman in construction. This face is the face of the construction industry. And so I want to challenge each one of you that's listening to us today. I don't care when it is in the future. What decision are you willing to make, and where's your plan of action, and who's holding you accountable? Again, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Wealth Builder. And back to you, Galen.
That's exactly why we do this. I mean, this is such a magical hour that if you are not subscribing to this podcast, if you're not subscribing to our YouTube channel, if you're not reading Think and Grow Rich, I really don't know how you're planning to be successful in your life. I guess chance and luck has their places, but with your life, how can you be successful on purpose? I would encourage everyone to not only subscribe, hit the reminder button, but to share this with anyone you believe needs to have some structured success in their life. because that's what we bring, right? And we bring people like Donald Dowridge, like Ann McNeil, like our other host who is out and about right now, Dr. Peter James, to bring you the tools that you need in order to be successful on purpose. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist. There are tons of ways for you to get a hold of me throughout social media, but the fun way, the best way, the most meaningful way, some people say, is for you to tune into my podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We're available on every podcast platform, every platform where podcasts are available. I double dog dare you to try us just once. We share the whiskeys to drink, the music to listen to, and interview leaders to share with you what it really takes to be an effective leader. As I said, I double dog dare you to try us just once. This has been another amazing conversation. Thank you so much for all of those who were able to join us live. We've had Dahlia Deering, who's been in the comments, Kristen McCarran, who's been in the comments, TLC family, thank you so much. Abundant Health, obviously Wyman Wimbush, Imelda Wallace, just Renetta Gordon. Thank you so much for all who were able to join us. Please, again, as I said, share, like, and subscribe so that we can help as many people as we can be successful on purpose. Until next time, please continue to think and grow rich. Take care.